My father used to say you only need two things in business: quality people and quality goods, or let's say services.
Nina, let me thank you for coming here. I'm really pleased to have you on the podcast. And we got out the way the fact that I didn't teach you. I thought I did. And you and your sister look like twins.
They do.
I'm always mistaking that. There's 3 years difference between the two of you.
There's 3 years.
Okay. So tell me, what do you do? I mean, I know your father's passed.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to put up a picture of him. And Sharon, I see her all the time.
She's often at TAC, yes. With my sister and the kids as often as well, too. My niece and nephew.
Right. You don't have kids of your own?
No, I don't. I'm not married either.
All right. Have you ever been married?
No. I've been really focused, I think, on the family and
maybe that's why you look so
family
happy
business.
all the time.
I also am surrounded by really wonderful people as well, too, so I have a really great support network, I guess.
So tell me, when someone meets you for the first time and they say, okay, what do you do? What do you tell them?
Well, simply put, I basically help foreign companies trying to enter the Japanese market with their trade network.
Okay.
Either that or help them with the marketing, because a lot of things are, lost in translation a little bit. From abroad to Japan, it doesn't quite fit all the time, so we try to help them try to market their messages in the Japanese market, generally for food and beverages, and also for we also actually have some government businesses as well too, like government style entities, but I guess is a better way of saying it, and then some private companies. We help them through the market, grow their market in the Japanese trade. But we also have another business model, which is a distribution model. So what we do is import mainly fragrances from abroad, mostly from Europe, Italy, and we sell them in the department stores, and we used to have our own shops as well. I just went through a very interesting year last year. We sold one part of our business, and they established in Japan, so we were able to, over 20 years, with a lot of labor of love, create this whole, we built the brand from nothing into, not known in Japan to something very well known, and so they established Japan, which is a great honor. But in that regard, we also had to start looking for new brands to enter into the Japanese market, and we just established a new one. So frankly speaking, we have a marketing consulting business, and we also have a distribution model. And on the side, we also have a small Italian restaurant in Ginza.
But didn't you have your perfumes as well were in Ginza, right?
Yes. So we...
I think I went to the shop. The shop's still there.
Yes.
I went to it.
Yes, so we did a brand from Florence, Italy, which was known as one of the world's oldest apothecaries.
Right.
One of the first fragrances or colognes ever made.
Yes.
And we established that over 21 years ago. In 2002 was the first shop.
So tell me, okay, now that's what you tell people when they meet you and you talk about what you do. Right now, I went a little bit through your background and stuff, and I noticed that you're not really that active on social media now.
Not right now, no.
Are you going to start to be?
Yes, I believe I have to start becoming a little bit more active, especially being the president of the company. I have to start being a little bit more of a brand, I guess, of myself.
Right.
So I'm just about trying to study how to do that now, because I know, as we were talking a little bit earlier about this, it's also about not only branding for myself, but it's also the company and how that also has an impact on everything else that I do. So.
How'd your father do it? I mean, when you were growing up, did you know what he did when you were growing up?
When I was younger, just a little bit. But that's part of the reason why I joined the family business. I was intending to come back from college and maybe just do 2 years, return on investment.
Where did you go to college?
College in California.
Which one? What college did you go to?
Do you know any of the Claremont colleges?
Claremont too,
yes,
okay.
I went to Scripps College, which is the all-girls college.
Right.
Yeah. So went from CSUN to ASIJ, and then from
that's
ASIJ,
co-ed.
and then I went to an all-girls college. But the Claremont colleges were pretty amazing in that you had a conglomerate of colleges. And so the core would be more women's oriented, and then you can take classes from the other campuses as well. So it was still some part co-ed. It was a great education, generally speaking, just because also women are able to be a little bit, I guess, frankly to say, more of a safer environment. I think,
Right.
In the sense that there's no additional kind of competition that you can have I guess you could have. It was just a really nice culture.
It was fair then.
Women to support each other.
Well, now it's not fair.
No, now
I shouldn't say that.
right now it's a different
Has Claremont
culture.
allowed, have they been because they're in California too, are they allowing people who feel like they're women in?
So frankly, when I was in Scripps too, they did have a couple of students that were not.
Are you kidding me?
I believe, but they were more like part-time type students.
How can they be part-time? Wait, because they weren't.
I think because it was also known for let's say humanities, and
Okay,
it was
right.
a certain kind of classes, I guess, or core subjects that they would have to basically be enrolled part of it.
Okay,
I
so
believe,
they allowed these people who were
in specific studies.
right just for the studies.
Yes,
but
exactly.
they couldn't do other stuff with you.
No, I mean, it was still pretty co-ed. I mean, it's like the dormitories were all women's dormitories,
Right,
of
right.
course, and a lot of classes there were some classes that were geared only for women in a safe environment as well, too.
Right.
So it's just all women, and so it was a lot
Right.
of more women's key subjects.
Right.
I would definitely be canceled probably at this point in time now, but
Right, that's true.
yeah.
So what did you graduate with?
When did,
What kind of degree did you graduate with?
I did organizational studies with a core in economics.
Okay, did you know what you wanted to do when you were in college? Did you plan on, did you think while you were in college you were going to be working with your father's business?
No, I wanted to be initially a doctor,
What type of doctor?
a pediatrician.
Really?
Yes. I think actually my school class in ASIJ, all of us wanted to become doctors. Yeah.
Did any of your friends become doctors?
I don't think anyone who did.
Minako?
There was probably nurses.
Okay, a couple
Yeah, there were a couple of
became
nurses, I think,
Okay.
and maybe 2 doctors.
Right.
But mostly everybody wanted in pre-med, and they all became like investment bankers. Different kind of personality, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you came back, then you came back to Japan. Did you start working with your father then? When you
Yes,
came?
immediately.
Immediately?
Yes. 'Cause,
Right out of college?
Right out of college, it was supposed to be an ROI on my education. Education is quite expensive. And also was interested in jumping in to see, he was so busy all the time, traveling a lot when we were kids.
Right.
And so I wanted to be a part of it as well, too. And it was pretty intense, actually, the first 2 years. Because, of course, being half Japanese, half American, frankly, just by culture.
Wait. Now, you see you're half Japanese, half American. Your father's mixed as well,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
what is he?
He's half Russian and half Japanese.
Okay, your mother as
Is
well.
half American, half Japanese.
Okay,
Like,
so you got a
culturally
little bit.
speaking.
So you just have a little bit of American.
Well, if you look at the ancestry as well,
Okay.
the background, or the 23.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I did.
And what'd you have? What did you come up with?
It was a mix of everything, I think. But I just like most Americans, I think you have a mixture of Irish, you have, British.
Oh,
And
everyone has a little Irish in them.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. I have a German-Irish grandmother. I'm not kidding you. Great-great-grandmother.
Yeah.
German-Irish.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So it's just, being an American, it's a mix of
That's
different
right.
kinds of cultures, I think. And
Did you
DNA,
have your
so-
father do it as well?
Yes. Yes, and so his came out more like a Ukraine area
Yes.
as well, too.
Okay.
So.
And your mother, you had her do it?
Yes, she did too. It was quite interesting to see. My sister did it, and my niece and nephew did as well. So
Okay.
it's been interesting to see. And
So-
some part has actually reflected very differently with my sister and myself. She's more British than I am, for example, and I'm a little more Irish than she is. And so it's
Oh, you mean
interesting.
because
And
of,
the DNA,
yeah,
you
wait,
can see
isn't that
yeah.
interesting?
It's very interesting, and we look
Same
like
thing.
twins.
You do. Because I even confuse you when I see you guys separately. So how'd your mother, get it? How was she when you were growing up?
Meaning, what kind?
Was she involved with the business as well?
Not so much. I think in the 80s when we were growing up, they had a lot more. Business culture was very different back then, I think. So in some regards, she was part of the business because
Right.
a lot of the businessmen would bring their wives, and so it was more of a family affair. My sister and I used to also join some of the business dinners as well, too, from a very young age.
Right.
So it was a very different environment. Now you definitely don't do that.
Right, right.
Practically. So yeah, she was pretty involved in building relationships with my father, with the wives and families.
So how did he train you? What did he do? You said you had to jump right in. What did he have you
Yes.
do?
Well, people I think have they make an assumption that when you do family business that it's very easy, or you have a hall pass basically.
But actually what they say in family businesses is one of the worst things to be a part of. First of all, you don't get paid well.
No, that's right.
Your hours are really, really long.
Yes.
And you just don't get the kind of credibility you'd get, if you work with someone that's not related to you. It's not that easy.
It's not easy. You have to work really hard.
So what was yours
and earn
like?
your respect.
Okay.
Yes, so it was very hard. And that's why I think in the first 2 years especially I had a sense of a little bit of anxiety as well too, just because I think it's like a culture clash. When you go to a very good school, like an international school, I think that you also live in a very, very privileged kind of lifestyle in a sense too. So you don't really, you learn a lot. You have this very wonderful experience of learning the different kind of cultures. And the education was great, I have to say. But on the other hand, you don't see the outside world. You get, I think when you're younger too, you're a little bit more, innocent in a way. You want to change the world and you think, you're going to have a bigger impact. But then you realize the world is a lot bigger than your small circle in a sense too. So I think in Japan too, I think there's so much of Japanese culture I wasn't really familiar with. because of course you only do it in the service industry, but when you actually work in Japanese culture, you realize that there are a lot more boundaries and parameters that are not visible to you, or not very clear.
Do you think the Japanese school, I mean not the Japanese school, but international schools aren't very good at showing you that, are they?
Well, I mean, I think for me, I think it was very good that we had like an inquisitive mind, and so we learned so much about concepts, and it was more of, at that time, I think, more of a liberal kind of arts education in a sense too. So you learn about everything, but you learn in a way that is more open-minded in a sense too. But it's not immersion in the culture. I mean, you do have the jump trips, or you do take these trips. You know, occasionally every year you go to like Hiroshima or Nagasaki, or they take you someplace. But again, you're going in as a student, and it's a very different experience. But going in as a shakaijin, as a person that's working, and if you're at the very bottom as well too, it's an entirely different experience. And you realize that there are certain layers of discussion. And I think when I first came back over 25 years ago, I was still relatively new I mean, I was in also the, let's say, the retail space, because I was doing the more luxury fragrances and introducing them to department stores. I'd go to some of these places, and they would be very, let's say, old school, I guess, or more traditional, that they prefer not to talk to women. So you have a lot of, let's say, buyers back then where it was basically all men, mostly not women. And so some would prefer that the woman doesn't speak. And then there'll be moments where, because I don't look fully Japanese, it's all about perception, where they think I come from.
Right.
And so there'll be that level of perception where, like, if I'm a gaijin, and if I'm let's say, a lady or a woman, they don't want to speak to you. So even if I am, over the period of time, I would also go up the ranks working hard. And I'd be speaking to the person across away from me and asking a question, but they will answer to my counterpart.
Who's a man? Who's a man, right.
Yes, they would prefer a man. So then I realized, at first I was really offended. I'm like, well,
were you doing this in English or Japanese?
In Japanese. And so that's part of the anxiety as well too, because my Japanese has improved dramatically over the last 20 years. But also I think there's some level where it's not as direct as I'd like it to be. I think English is a lot more direct of a language, and I think culturally you can also be more direct. But when it's in Japanese, I mean, especially if you want to get mad in a polite way, you're just going around in circles and circles, and it can be very frustrating. You're like, I can't make my point. My point is.
Right.
You know, so I was having, in the first 2 years especially, I was also having that kind of, I guess, culture shock, counter-culture shock, because I was trying my best to try to express myself, but then you realize you're not meant to really express yourself.
And plus you were young too, you're still in your 20s.
Yeah.
So how'd you do? So what'd you do? You had your counterpart with you, who's a man, who's actually working for you.
Yes. So I just got used to the fact that that is a possibility, and not to take it personal, because it's actually not really all that personal, I think. It's a matter of perception, and if it's more comfortable for the other person to be able to express their ideas or feel a little bit, I mean, that's part of business, I think, or anything. I mean, it's about relationship building in a sense too, so you just take the time for them to get more comfortable and used to you, and if you realize that it's not serving a purpose, then I can actually just guide the person. It's part of like coaching. I mean, you do this, you're formerly a coach, I mean, and I think once a coach, always a coach. And so it's just a matter of trying to find a way that other people can grow in that environment and give them the tools. And it took me a while to trust other people.
How long did it take you? When did you feel like, okay, I've got this down? When you really started seeing the contracts being signed and you're starting to, because that's how we judge it. If we're bringing money into the company, that's how you really judge it. So when did you start feeling like, I'm earning my keep? How long did it take?
I don't think I ever had an epiphany of that sort of thing as well too. I think it's part of being like, I used to also do team sports a lot, and those are my glory days. But it's one of those things where I think when you're in team sport, that everybody has their skill set, and everybody works on their skill set. But so you work as a team, and so it's kind of like this is your role, this is my role, and so it's. I mean, of course.
You never felt that.
I never had the epiphany, like, oh yeah, I'm like, it's kind of.
Because you knew you owned the company anyway, so what? Wait.
Well, I mean, also, I think I'm very fortunate that it's kind of a work family. I mean, yes, it's kind of a small company. It grew over a period of time and just shrank a little bit more because we sold part of the business recently. But having said that, we're still a really good work family. And so I don't think, in some regard, that there is much of a hierarchy. Only hierarchy happens when there's an issue that needs to be solved, I think, right now anyway.
Right.
And my father was always with us as well, too, so we always had
So you knew where the buck stopped, and that was with him?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Now it starts with me.
Right, now it's with you.
Yes.
So how did you get that transformation? I mean, did you know your father was going to give it to you?
Well, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean,
you
in
knew
succession,
that,
yes.
Okay.
So he was, I think.
Did he talk to you like that? I mean, did he say,
In the earlier stages, not so much. He was very hard. I mean, hardcore, really, in training. He also had really like the bushi-doh way,
Okay, right.
the honor code and honor
Yes,
system as well
yes.
too. So he was, I think, in some ways, he was also very liberal-minded from before. He was always on trend about things and really instinctive about things as well too. So I'm very similar to him. That I think on my feet as well too.
Well, you mean when you're doing stuff, you have to walk around when you're really into. Is that how you come up with ideas? You move around a lot when you talk. Do you like to move? When you say you think on your feet, are you saying that literally or just
also
figuratively?
as
Okay,
well
figuratively.
too. It's
okay.
kind of like an instinctive kind of situation
Right.
as well too. Because
Right.
I'm sure you feel the same too.
Right.
Especially I think sports people
Right.
are predominantly people that think on their feet, and
Okay.
so it's not one. You don't necessarily have to psychoanalyze everything. You just have a feeling for something.
Right.
It's kind of like basketball, for example.
Right.
You don't have to. It's like Magic Johnson, right?
Okay.
He just knows that the ball's coming, and
He knows.
sending it somewhere else.
He can feel it
Exactly.
coming. Right.
My father used to say, have 12 sets of eyes, so constant observation.
He said 12 sets of eyes.
Yeah,
that was
that's
one
what
of
he
his
used to say.
sayings.
Yeah. So you're always observing and picking up information
Right.
from all sorts
Okay.
of places. But yeah.
How did you feel when you went along with him? What did you feel when you be with your dad? And did you ever watch him? Of course, you watched him negotiate business.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel when you watch your dad do a business?
He's very good. It was pretty inspiring, I think. A lot of
what
people
respect?
feel the same way as well, too. When you watch him, it's just, he's such a natural because he really did pay a lot of attention on how he treated people and relationships as well, too. So he always knew the right time to have sense of humor, for example, where to be serious. He was just a natural and really gifted and very charming as well, too, but in a way that had a lot of integrity. And so it was always fascinating to watch. And he's never been one of those people that really compromises on the relationships and trust. My father used to always say, Nina, it's about trust. And to some degree, I felt I understood what he meant. But with every year that goes by, I learned more about the trust factor as well. So, especially in the last year and a half.
What do you think he meant? Okay, so explain it to me. What do you think he was saying?
Well, this again goes back to relationships and how you also, relate with other people. And you have to have a sense of trust and feel trust. But you also have to kind of give the other person a sense of trust as well too. So it's about being transparent as well, and have the other person have that transparency. When I first thought about trust, it's like goods and services. My father used to say you only need two things in business: quality people and quality goods, or let's say services. You need just these two things, and you can make a really good business and long-term business doing this as well. But so if you don't have both of these at the same level, it's not going to happen. And that's part of the trust. And so let's say for me having to in the very beginning part, it's about the services that you provide or the products that you give to the market. You need to trust that product and that brand. And so the brand has to be able to kind of speak for itself. The products should also speak for itself. Marketing is important, but on the other hand, the products itself, if you trust and you try it out, then you know that you can trust it because of it smells good, or you don't have any allergies to your skin, or something along those lines. Like, you can trust that it's always going to be good quality and it's going to meet your expectations. So that was one level. And there's always another level of, like, let's say when you're speaking to your team, you also have this trust with your team as well. So it's like the I have. In Japanese, they like this, I have, you have, sekai. So it's kind of like a sense of accountability. So if I'm doing this part, I'll do this part, you do your part, and then we meet and finalize the project or something like this. So it was kind of in that level. But it's just gotten even deeper, I think, in the last year and a half for me, because, with my father passing away.
How long has it been since he passed?
It's been about a year and a half.
A year and a half?
Yeah.
Was it hard? Did he have an illness, or what was it?
He used to joke about this as well too, but I think he really enjoyed the 80s and 90s. I think everybody did, generally speaking.
Who didn't? The bubble.
And so I
the
think
bigger
that,
got, the more fun we had.
Yeah. So at that time too, you had, Japan did really well in the economy as well too. So you're talking about really, a lot of fine dining, and even back then the sittai was very different, I think, too. And so you would have like the super Tuscan wines and any of these things. So I think at that point you have that kind of lifestyle, it does catch up on you. So he did have a couple of other ailments, and so he would be like, I'm like a supermarket of ailments. But
did he smoke too? Was he a smoker?
Yes, he did. Okay. But he wasn't like a heavy drinker either. So it's one of those things that he just really liked eating good food. That was probably the biggest thing for him. It's anyway.
He didn't get big, did he?
No, never.
Okay, he's really petite, like you two.
He was pretty tall. He's about 5'11".
Okay, that's all.
But he was always very in good shape, like fitness-wise, yes. But he.
Do you know how he and your mother met?
I do. They met here in Japan, and
Okay.
I can't probably go into too many
We won't
details
go into
because
this.
my mother is a very private person.
Sharon, we know you're very private, so we're going to keep you out of this. We won't say too much about you, but you will see this. And one day I'm going to get you on this.
I mean, it's a very lovely story in a way, too, because they met and they were in Japan. And my father always says, I mean, he also had, again, it goes back to trust and, just the way that he felt about my grandmother, because he met my...
Your grandmother?
Yes.
You mean
my
your mother's mother?
Yes. And my father had just lost his mother.
So he knew her first or something?
They met about the same time.
Okay.
And so they ended up being in the same world in any case. And my grandmother was talking to my father, and she knew that my father had just lost his mother. And so she was very kind to him. And he always talks about how he remembers my grandmother being so kind to him. And my grandmother is also one of those people that's just so outgoing and had such a great personality. She always loved to laugh and joke around a lot. So.
Is she still with us?
Unfortunately, no. She passed away right before COVID in 2019. Okay. So I'm glad that she actually didn't have to experience COVID as well.
That wasn't fun at all. No.
But she was a lot of fun. She knew what's going on in the world. She knew about Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga before I would know about it. She was, she had her own, she was on it.
Was she here in Tokyo?
No, she lived in California.
She lived in California?
Yes.
Okay, I want to know more about Sharon. I'll ask her directly. No, it's good. I'll ask her directly. Yeah. Anyway, so your mom and dad got together, then they had you right away?
So, no, not right away.
Okay.
They met when my mother was also very young, and my father, when they were very young. But so my mother met him for the first time when she was about 14 years old. Yeah.
I think she told me that.
Yeah.
They've known each other, I think she said they knew each other since she was 14.
Yes. So, also my mother and her family, they would move back and forth between the States and Japan as well, too. So, she would come and go, and when they would come back to Japan, they would also, spend some time with my father as well. So, when she graduated from high school, and she decided she'd come back to Japan and go to the university here. So, that's as much as I will talk about my mother.
Okay, that's what you were talking about already.
But from there, the romance blossomed between my mom and my father, and they stayed here. And that was part of the reason why, because my mother's Japanese is pretty good.
It is, yeah.
But,
well,
not the same level as a native, of course, and so in that regard, my mother was like, well, the children should go to an American, or let's say an English-speaking school, international school, while we're living in Japan, so she can also communicate with us as children. So she does, her whole life is with my father. In a sense, I like to say, she doesn't really know life without my father at this point, and so I think, if anything, it's been the toughest on her for the last year and a half.
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of talking with your mother. She's such a beautiful woman, and I can see where your father could say quality and trust. If you have those two, and he picked a quality woman, and she's raised some quality daughters. She's fantastic. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So you've known the American Club your whole life.
Yes. So I'm a legacy member.
Right.
And I took over my father's.
So what's your number? Don't tell me the whole number, but what's the first two numbers? What is it?
8.
What?
Yeah, it's a 4-digit number.
4 digits. He's under the 1,000. I did. No, he's not under 1,000 because I did a book here.
Okay.
Under 1,000 when I was on the board. And maybe you knew Madame Ma? She had one of the nicest Chinese restaurants. It was the top one here.
Yes,
Madame Ma. I had her in that.
Okay.
And I became close friends with her before she passed. Madame, because she loved Danny Kaye, because whenever Danny Kaye, if you remember, he's an actor in the U.S., he'd come here, he'd go to Madame Ma's restaurant. I just had a woman on the other day who has the best restaurant in Japan.
Okay.
At least in Tokyo for sure. Not about it. Christine is her name.
Okay.
And it's right underneath the Prime Minister's residence, the same building.
I live nearby there. I have to go check it out then.
Yeah, you sure will. Well, you can only get in there if you know her, or reservations are up until October. But through me, I'll talk to her. Yeah.
It's about who you know. That's the other part, the trust factor. It's all about who you know.
Isn't that the truth? And how they know you.
Yes.
That makes a difference. But in Japan, at least, if they have a good relationship with the person who you know, and they trust that person, they'll forgive whatever the person you introduce them to does, even if they don't match. But usually they know that you'll know. You know what I mean? I love that. I just love the system here. And it is about trust.
It goes a long way, and it's a lot deeper, and it doesn't have it doesn't have enough words to express that sense of trust, I think. But it's also about who you ask as well, too. This is one thing I learned as well, too, about the trust factor is it depends on, I mean, we're also about not only who we know, but the resources that we have around us as well, too. So it's like having maybe, let's say, 5 lawyers. It depends on which 5 lawyers you ask, which part of the question, like how to answer the question, and they can all give you a different kind of advice. But it's very important who you ask as well. So that's one other filter I have now.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What are you doing now? What are the things you're really focusing on now in your business?
Right now, I'm trying to, I mean, in a way, because we had established the same brand and have been working on the same brand for over 20 years, now I'm kind of a startup, and so I'm trying to introduce new brands to the market. And so I have already kind of a schedule on how to roll the other new brands out. And so we just started this Merchant of Venice, which is a lovely fragrance brand from Venice. And so you can see that it's a labor of love. And it really, what I like about it is also not only because it's a beautiful brand, but it also, and like the reason why I like fragrances as well too is because, let's say, you know, you have 5 senses, so like, you know, physical touch and how you taste and, you know, how you hear things. And some music can also take you back to a certain period of time. But fragrances, if anything, it can remind you of a person. It gives you a certain kind of memory, good or bad. And so I feel like fragrances is quite nice to be into because it's also kind of gives you an imagination of where you want to be or something. So this is part of the other extra element that I like about being in the fragrance world. But I mean, like my grandfather, I mean, to this day, he smells like Old Spice to me, you know?
Now
Old Spice.
This is your mother's father?
Yes, my mother's father.
And he's still with us?
No, unfortunately, he's not either.
He's passed
so,
too. Okay. But
yeah.
Old Spice was my father.
Your father? I mean
that's the smell. That's the smell.
Right?
You remember you remember the bottle with the little thing, the little gray thing in the top? Yeah.
Is he still with us?
No, he left.
But see, so when you think about, if you smell that fragrance,
right away,
immediately, and it feels like a hug, you know. And so you associate some fragrances with some people or some memories, and it can trigger really good memories as well too.
That's true.
And I've seen this happen with other people I know. I would gift them something, and it turns out it was their great grandmother's fragrance or something, and so it brings, you know, and this flood of emotions, and it's very nice to have. It's kind of a nostalgic kind of feeling as well. So. But in any case, so I'm rolling out a few new brands in the Japanese market on the distribution side, and be doing another one from a cosmetics company from Australia, from Core. It's called Core Organics. It's by Miranda Kerr, which is very lovely as well too. I mean, your organ, the largest organ is your skin, and
that's right.
If you think of that and what things absorb very quickly as well too. So if you're going to use something, might as well use something that's kinder to your body.
Right.
But I think that, I mean, in Japan too, I mean, so much has changed. I mean, we were talking about this earlier as well. Right. I mean, so I would go to these buyers, and mostly men. Now you have a mixture, so it's more inclusive than it's ever been before.
That started in the 90s.
Therapy is the same situation as well too.
Right.
In Japan, they do the shindansha. You can say you go to a doctor, 10 minutes later, you can come out with medication. They don't actually treat you. And so it's part of the infrastructure as well, but I think a lot of people just assume that it's much easier to just go to a psychiatrist, a therapist, more like a psychiatrist, just to get pills. And that doesn't actually address the problem, or it's not really a solution.
It's a Band-Aid.
Exactly, as well too. So I feel like I wish that there was a little bit more that can be done in that space.
It can be, but they have to be trained. They're not trained. My wife's a doctor.
Oh,
and it's interesting. We used to have quite a few spirited debates, and I've stopped because I never won. But I did win one time. I said, you know something? You don't understand what you went to school to learn. And she said, yes, I did. And I said, no, you don't. If you're a fireman, you would have understood. If you're a policeman, you understood. But as a doctor, you don't understand what you were taught to do.
Right.
And she said, what was I taught to do? I said, you were taught to look for the worst in human beings. That's why they don't like coming to you. And they only come to you when they're feeling or looking their worst. Am I right? But if you turn that around, knowing that, and said, look, don't come to me when you're feeling bad. Come to me when you're feeling your best. When you really feel like you could take on the world. Let me take your blood, see how flexible you are and everything then, and I will do my best as a doctor to try to help keep you there.
I can see
That's
that.
how they should do it.
I can see that, but then again, it goes back to you're a coach, and coaches do that.
But see, doctors should be taught to do that. And there's something else that doctors are never taught, nutrition. We know more about this world than we do about the nutrition of human beings. We're not taught that. And there's a reason behind all this too, and that's because of the companies that lobby not to let that information be given out. Because it's better to keep you kind of sick.
Yeah.
A little sick, so I can give you a Band-Aid, just a
Right.
little sick, and you get a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You know.
Agreed.
Don't you think?
It's a business. Ultimately, every part of it is business. Everything that everything is a level of business.
It is, and they're all connected in some way or another. That's so interesting. It really is.
Yeah.
The fact that they are, and the older you get, the more you start realizing that none of it's separate. It's all together in one way or another. It all adds up. Like you said, the scent, that's a memory, and that memory can have pleasant memories or unpleasant ones.
Yeah.
You know, but there's still, the scent can bring that out.
Yeah.
And if you get good at it, which I'm sure you are, you know which ones to use.
I mean, it really is a mood maker. I think it can lift your spirits up. It's like aromatherapy was very popular in the early 2000s, but now there's a neuroscience about it. I mean, there's a lot of investigation as well in neurosciences, so I'm hoping to kind of dive into that a little bit more, but Japanese regulations are very strict. Right. So let's hope that it does catch up. But there is a neuroscience to it. It will trigger memories or trigger a sense of well-being, how you want to feel as well. So
I guess that would depend upon which fragrances or stuff that stimulate a positive thought in your mind.
Exactly.
Just like movies.
Yes.
Do you do any of that now?
In terms of how?
Like when you walk into your place, do you have scents around?
Yes, I do. I'm not a nose like a perfumer, but you get a little bit sensitive to fragrances or smells as well too. So, yeah.
And everyone, you could take the same fragrance and put it on a different person. It's going to smell different.
Yes.
Because of
ultimately, yes, it
right?
can. Because everybody has a different body temperature,
right.
and how your body basically, I guess, perspires can also
right.
change as well too. So, yeah, no, it can change. So my sister and I used to use like say the same fragrance at some point, but it would smell much more sweeter on her, and it would kind of blossom. Whereas for me, it would get a little bit spicier. Some of them. So, yeah.
Where do you put the fragrance for a man? Where would you tell me I'd put it? So if I have a fragrance, then how much would I put on in the morning?
Because also depends culturally, and if you like fragrances or not. I mean, you're talking
about.
Well,
I don't want to
be
too overpowering. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I don't want.
The Italians. I mean, after a shower or bath, I mean, they take. You know, in Japan, they want the 50 milliliter bottles, 30 milliliter bottles. So they don't want a big bottle. And you go to Europe, and it's like, give me the 250 milliliter bottle. And they just, jump it and put it all over their body, as it is. But I'd say in Japan, like in the first 20 years, at the very beginning, nobody wore fragrances, really. They're like, I can't wear this to work. I don't want to be offensive to people in work. I mean, the tradition is they would have the nioi bukuro, which is basically a fragrance bag that they would put into their drawers, for their cabinets, for their kimonos, etc. So to put it on the person.
Right.
And so this is, the fragrance market actually is booming and has been booming, especially through COVID as well, even much more. So people are much more interested. But it's still relatively new, and so usually they would tell you, where your pulsing points are, so behind your your ears, or
when you
on
put
your
it
wrists.
what do you do? How do you put it on? What
Usually
do you do?
like a spray, or you can actually put the bottle directly. I wouldn't recommend putting the bottle mouth directly to your skin, because even if you wash, for example, you can actually put it can contaminate the fragrance if you put it back.
Oh, right, I got you. Right.
Because otherwise, even
really?
the perspiration. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So,
right, so
it is mostly alcohol.
Right.
So, it should be relatively okay.
Okay.
But granted,
right.
I wouldn't want to contaminate it.
Right.
So, yeah. So you put it in your your pulsing points, so behind your ears or wrists. You can put it like I don't know, some people put it
here and here
and behind their knees.
Really?
Yeah.
Who's it?
And so anywhere that the pulses or where the heat kind of can.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, a lot of people find that they're allergic to alcohol, like direct contact as well too. Can be. A lot of people have sensitive
and they start
skin.
to break out or something, and their skin.
So in those instances, I would say to take it like a spray. Make sure that's a spray, and just kind of walk into it.
I saw someone do that. Well, I've seen that. I think it was in a movie.
Yeah.
I saw once the guys went and they walked into it.
Yes. I would also be careful not to put it too high in the air, because otherwise you might get in your
eyes.
or something like that.
Right, exactly.
So there's that, and also there are people that actually put it inside the lapels of their jacket as well.
Okay.
But
I don't put it on their clothes, but I don't. Yeah, okay.
I don't mind at all. I
really?
I like
you
fragrances.
Okay.
I like. I put it in.
You just put it there.
Just directly on my person as well too. But the more natural kind of fragrances they are, lighter, I guess, or higher quality.
How long will it last?
It really depends. Like some of the citruses, for example, citrus bases are a little bit lighter, and so they might last anywhere from an hour to maybe 4 hours.
Right.
And so you might have to reapply it. When it becomes a little bit more floral, then a lot of the times it'll last a little bit longer throughout the day. So maybe 4 to 6 hours. If it's herbal and it's darker, and you can see that the color is a lot stronger too, you'll see that can last you quite a long time. But the best is to choose a fragrance you like. Let's say if you go to the store, put one on each hand, like arm, wrist.
Right.
And then smell it after 30 minutes. sniff it again after like an hour and see how it is, because it's very private and you're the one that's going to be smelling it most, right?
That's true. That's true.
And the higher quality, I think it has a way of expressing itself in a way that is a lot more elegant, let's say, because there are ones that are very strong and you go into an elevator and you're like, oh, I think I might get a migraine because, and everybody ends up smelling the same, and there's just that kind of really super chemical, almost like a butane kind of fragrance as well too. You're like, is somebody flammable? I don't know.
Don't light a match.
That there's that kind of sense. So
that's true. That's true.
The higher the quality, I feel that you will see the difference, because it will also kind of evolve over time. So I would recommend, instead of choosing one just because on the tester stick it smells great, you don't know how it's going to kind of.
This is how it's going to be on you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would recommend, if you find 2 fragrances that you like, and put on one
and
list
then leave,
each, and then
walk
leave.
around for a while. Yeah.
And I would walk around for about a couple hours, or you just look at it overnight, but just see how it blooms, I guess.
I hadn't thought of that. That's true. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I do like fragrances.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you do? Okay, what do you wear?
Oh, I do. But I don't know what I'm wearing. But I make sure that it's of quality. Mm-hmm. And that's not always just by expense and what works for me. And what works for me.
Yes.
And I tend to like musk.
Yeah.
Something with musk in it.
I can see that.
So there's a brand that I like, and I remember first time smelling it on someone else. It smells different on me, but it's not overpowering, and you have to be close to me. If you smell me, that's what you'd smell. Mm-hmm. But outside that, but I don't like it when it goes too far out. Right. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I don't want to be on an elevator and people going.
But it's kind of like a mystery in a sense too. It has to have a little bit of an element of a mystery. I mean, there's another fragrance that brand that I'm talking to, and there's one fragrance that I really like very much. The storyline of it is basically it's like if you're at a party, like a masquerade ball, for example, and there's a man and a woman, and they meet, but they can't really see each other because of the masks. But she walks by him, and the idea is that he's drawn by the fragrance, and so, but only when they walk by you, really close by, so it's not, overpowering. It's kind of like a hint. It's a mystery. It's almost kind of sexy in a way too. Yeah. But I think that's how fragrances should really be. You have to be close. I mean, you have to be up close and personal, I think, to somebody, to be able to give them a hug or to have that kind of hint of what they're. I mean, it's also an expression of yourself and that mood that day, for example, maybe with what you're wearing or something.
Well, that's what yours was like for me here.
Thank you.
When you came off the elevator and you said you're a hugger, I said, well, so am I. But and I said, that's a nice fragrance. Did you hear what I said to you?
Yes.
I said, you smell really good.
Thank you very much. And this is one of the fragrances I'm trying on right now to think of importing from next year.
Well, it works for you, I'm telling you.
Thank you very much. It's a Spanish brand. So,
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting in a way.
It's a Spanish brand, but is that the one from Australia? No,
this one's from Spain.
From Spain,
yeah,
okay.
No, I'm very fortunate, very happy. I mean, that we have had a really good response back from the market, because, I mean, we did really focus on just one brand this entire time, but because of that precedence, I mean, we have many people that want to continue with us because we were able to. I mean, once you establish a network in Japan and it's over 20 years, I mean, you also have that sense of trust as well too. They know how you show up. I mean, it's part of that trust is also how we were talking about. This is another element. You need to show up for people. You have to show up for yourself. And how you show up.
Makes all the difference.
Makes all the difference in the world, and so that's part of also kind of like a solution finding situation where, I mean, there are so many brands now. I mean, I think it's the same in the fashion world as well. So many of them are very similar to each other, and I think we're kind of a little overdosed on the same kind of thing. And so people are looking for something different, not to say a novelty to make them feel more special in a sense, but something that's a little bit less mainstream, I think.
Everybody wants to have something special.
So we're very fortunate that we have some brands coming through the pipeline as well too. I just have to pace myself.
Yes.
So.
I was really happy also that you guys, all my sons are doing their own thing, and my second son's in real estate.
Yeah,
and I was really happy when you guys reached out.
Thank you.
And we're looking, Louis is going to try to help to find you guys a place
that
you'll find good. So when you went through that.
Certainly hope so. I hope that we're able to
that was your mother. Your mother speaking to me. She was talking to me, and we started talking, and she said, yeah, I'm doing this and that. Because I see her, and I want to make sure she's okay.
Yeah.
Because she was having a hard time, because I'd see her sometimes at another hotel I go to, the Sano.
Yes.
And she was there, and I could see that she was not happy, and that was when she was going through it. Yes, I was. I call her Shisho. Kimiko, I call her Shisho. Right. She used to cut my hair when I was in the Air Force.
Wow. Okay.
She had a,
So my grandfather was in the Air Force.
He was?
Yeah, my Old Spice wearing grandfather was in the Air Force.
Is that right?
That's right.
So how long was he in? He didn't retire from the Air Force. He spent his 4 years.
No, he retired from the Air Force.
Oh, he stayed in the Air Force.
But I was too young to know the difference, really. But I used to think that it was so cool. I mean, I still think it's pretty cool.
So anyway, so we're going to try to do our best to make sure that things work out for you. that you get the places you're looking for.
Thank you very much. I
Those are done
sincerely
diligently.
appreciate that. I mean, it's a real estate bubble, and it's very difficult, and they go by really quickly. You have to.
They do.
find
I
them
mean, that's why you have to
quickly.
be on top of it. That's true. And again, that's just like anything else. It's who you know. And a lot of the stuff isn't going to be out on the market, but it's there.
Yes.
I that's the feeling I've told
Yes.
my son you should go in with.
Yes.
It's there. Somebody wants it. They may not even know yet.
Yeah.
They want their place to be changed.
Yes.
They want to have it used. So let's just go and ask the places that you're talking about.
I mean, I think a lot of the places, such as, the real estate that I think that your son was also sharing with my mother, is too one of those places where you think, okay, the owner of the building, especially if it's a kojin, like an owner owned
That's right,
independently, they're also looking for the trust factor.
Most definitely.
Who will stay for a longer period of time and take care of our family.
And who's going to make our place look good? Right, exactly. So, and that's what I'm saying. Even if they don't have it on the market, they may not know yet.
Yes. Yes.
Knock on the door and ask them, would you be
Yes.
interested?
Yes.
Matter of fact, that's just what I was thinking about.
Mm.
You never know.
Yeah.
Nina, this has been wonderful. Listen, before I end the podcast,
Yes.
there's a question I always like to ask.
Yes.
If you could go back in time
Yes.
and meet the younger Nina
Yes.
and give her advice based upon what you know now,
Yes.
how old would you be at that time and what advice would you give her?
I would say probably in my earlier 20s, probably my 20s would be the right thing. Say, worry less about things you cannot control. Probably would be the best thing, because I think we have, we spend a lot of time worrying, and you realize, I mean, there is an element that when you do worry about things that you're thinking things through. But I think that we also have a tendency, I mean, it's an age of anxiety as well, too, I think. And I was pretty anxiety-ridden, I think, in my 20s, about concern about how everything had a different impact on everybody else. And there were some things that actually were not mine to be worrying about, and it was out of my control. So if you are able to release some of that control, I think that gives you a little bit more space to take good risks, I think, and live life a little bit more, Feel the fear and do it anyway. I mean, I think, live in that anxiety where sometimes it can stop you from doing something greater, maybe. So.
That's right. Do you ever talk with your sister?
With my
Her being a
sister?
psychiatrist.
She tells me all sorts of things. I mean, she also teaches. I mean, this is, I think, the other part. You always want to have a learner kind of mindset, like a
Are you
beginner
guys close?
mindset.
Are you close?
We're very close.
That's beautiful.
But so, yeah, she'll share a lot of things that she's learned as well, too. I mean, part of the reason why I think I'm also not married, so to speak, is also the marrying well. She was talking about how marriage is. I mean, but we're also very fortunate, though, about, because I had, one of my other aunts also had passed as well, but we got to have a lot of, let's say, reference points for good and healthy, like, respectful relationships as well, too. So I think that was part of it. But marrying well is also, I mean, it's a lifelong decision to make. But that's the ultimate goal, right? Your partner, and how you were able to, like you said, bring each other up as well, too. And
So you still would do it if you sit
yes,
there.
of course, absolutely. But I think
Well, you smile a little bit there.
I'm like, of course. I'm like, of course. I'm not giving up. I'm not down on love. No, of course not.
We just wait for it to happen.
I mean, but when you're younger too, you're like, okay, well, it's,
Yeah,
will my
you feel
father
that
like
push,
him, like
right.
my mother like him, or will they get along with the family, etc. You realize, you're a person, the other person is also an evolved human being, and so there's a way you can work things out instead of worrying about the things you can't
That's
control.
right. That's right.
Then you can also take on a little bit more risk, I guess, too.
Nina,
But finance is so hard. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate
Nina.
this. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And never forget, it's all on loan. So continue to reach for the stars.
Because you're too blessed to be stressed.